Welcome to the Irish Roots Cafe. I'm Michael O'Loughlin. This podcast is actually taken from 1984. After 22 years, we have recovered the lost tapes. This is the second of a 6-part series on Irish family research for beginners. We also cover other topics, including travel, Irish festivals, books, family history, and more. Let me know what else you'd like to hear. My homepage is at www.irishroots.com, and my email is mike@irishroots.com. You can reach me by regular mail at Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri 64116. I can hear my friend Peter again now, warming up in the middle of my living room before our second session. Sit back and relax. Here is our second in the series of 6. Go, Peter.
If you ever go across the sea to Ireland, and maybe at the closing of your day, you will sit and watch the moon rise over Clotho, and watch the sun go down on Galway Bay.
One of the things that you should be very conscious of when you go to Ireland is that people move at somewhat of a different pace. I recall the story to myself many times when I was looking through a castle and trying to just do a little research in the area. And a friend of mine was with me, and we stopped along, and there were some people behind us, and I said to him, "Hurry up now, Ronnie, hurry up." And there was a lady standing there, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm not moving fast enough." And she said, "Oh, now remember, young man, there's nobody in a hurry in Ireland."
And sure, that's true. Everybody that's been there knows it. You learn real quick, and if you adjust to the pace, you're going to get a lot of help, and you're going to find out the specifics you're looking for on your search more often than not. Just remember to relax. Now we're moving on to finding your family name in Ireland. I might mention I left off session 1 talking about finding my castle that had stirred my blood so much. And I did find it, not only one, but I actually found about 12 O'Loughlin castles in County Clare. Now, 1 or 2 were of the nice big European kind, but I found maybe 10 of them were more like a little turret sticking up out of the ground. It wasn't quite as grand as I had thought, but other things proved to be even more rewarding. Finding your county. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. A lot of this information is in all the beginners' books on Irish ancestry, including tracing your Irish ancestors. Here's how you find your name in Ireland, with surname locators. I'm going to list a few of them for you. You'll see them as you continue your research, but understand what you're looking at. The 1890 birth index gives you the location of the name in Ireland where births were recorded in 1890 or 1891. Write down the county that appears by your name. Remember that it's not just 1890 this birth index is good for. Many people say, "My people came over in 1850. This is of no good to me." They're wrong. Ireland is a land where the people are traditionally tied to the land. They didn't tend to move around a lot. The famine did cause some major disruptions, but the 1890 birth index is a good general surname locator for, say, the time from the period of the famine to 1890. And it also is a fair indicator for the whole 1800s era. So write it down and make a note. Secondly, if you want to understand the family spelling of your names and some of the variants, look in the Book of Irish Family Names or Matheson's Report on Surnames. Thirdly, Griffith's Survey. We'll go back about 30 more years, around 1850. Write down where your name is found in the Griffith's Survey. Move back another 30 years to 1830. Look at the tithe allotment books. Where was your name found in 1830? Write it down. Now, there is a combination index on Griffith's Survey and the tithe allotment books. It's called the Householder's Index. They've got one in Ireland at the National Library. LDS has one, and I'm sure that there's other locations too. But you go to that book, look up your name, and it'll tell you where it was in those 2 important surname locator books. Now, there's also censuses and surveys that go back earlier in time, 1654, 1659, have both been printed in a modern book form where at least you can get a location for your name. Irish Family Names, the book, gives you the location of the name in 1890, in 1659. It also gives you the surname index reference, if there was one for your name, in Keating's History of Ireland and other foundation publications. Talking about your castles and lands, I found my castles and the land, really, of the family, which was luckily located in County Clare almost exclusively, on the Ordnance Survey maps. These are small-scale maps, blown up, done on a large scale, actually, and it gives you the locations of some of the older castles, some landmarks that are gone today. But it's very, very helpful, and if you're doing local research at all, either from your living room or from a trip to Ireland, you've got to get a hold of a map of your county. You'll also want to look at the estate records in the National Library in Dublin. There's a page or so of names that are included in this estate records in the National Library in the complete book for tracing your ancestors. Peter, maybe you could share another story with us. When people happen to be out in their county looking for their castles and they might happen to ask for a little help in locating it. Tell us what this might be like.
I was driving down this long road in County Sligo one day looking for a particular piece of land, and I was driving around and got lost, basically, and so I saw a local native walking down the street, so I decided to pull over and ask for some directions. And I said to the girl, "I'm looking for this particular place." She said, "Oh, you're on the wrong road, but you could take this one if you want to." So what you deal with is that they're very, very congenial, and they're going to go along with, you want to go that way, you can go that way. You won't get very far, but you certainly can go the way that you're going. So you really have to ask a number of times. Ask about 5 different people. Don't just stop at one. Keep asking.
I love that story. I love several of your stories. We're going to get a few more of them in here a little bit later. If you do happen to be lucky enough to go to Ireland to research your family, I suggest very strongly that you go and you stay at a bed and breakfast. A bed and breakfast is referred to as a B&B. That's where you stay with an Irish family in most cases in their house. It'll cost you a little bit less than a hotel. You'll get your breakfast, which is a full, nice breakfast. You'll get some cereal, maybe some oatmeal, some eggs, and some sausage, and a little bit more on top of that. But the key thing is you're living with some real people, and you can talk to them. They can open doors for you that might not otherwise be open. So get a list of the bed and breakfast establishments from your travel agency or the Irish Tourist Board. Now you'll notice in there that they have the name of the proprietor of each bed and breakfast. First of all, go to the county or area you're going to be researching in. Secondly, look for the last name of the proprietor of the bed and breakfast. If he happens to have the same last name as the one you're searching, he can open up doors to the elders of the people in the community and maybe help you a little bit on some specialized areas of your search. I know that it's worked for me, and I not only had a lot of help in my research, but I made a lifelong friend. I'd also like to tell you that in Ireland, you can once again use the simple tools: the newspaper, the telephone, and the mailbox. You don't have to be a professional, scholarly researcher at all times. Before you arrive in Ireland, or even if you don't go to Ireland at all, place an ad in a local newspaper if you've narrowed your search down. Keep it simple. Just say that you're looking for some family history of the name. Don't get too specific, and you might even say that you'll reimburse small expenses. You can get a list of Irish newspapers that are presently published, and you can even subscribe to one by looking at the newspaper heading in the accompanying booklet that came along with this presentation. You can also, when you're in Ireland, look at old papers that were published in the 1800s or earlier. They can give you a fascinating look into some Irish history and also tell of connections with your area in America and in Ireland that you weren't aware of. I once was looking through County Kerry newspapers and found a strange reference to a Missouri Railroad train wreck. There was no reference to America in any of the other papers, just all of a sudden this appeared on the front page. My family happened to come to Missouri on the railroad, and they had come from the area where that paper was published, so that provided me with a valuable lead. Secondly, you can actually call from the United States to a rural area in Ireland and get some success. Believe it or not, I've known people that have called point blank looking for a family in Ireland. Say the name was Rose. They call the local police headquarters or a local shop because they knew their family came from that area and said, "I'm looking for someone named Rose. I'm tracing my family. This is very important. Can you help me?" Well, the answer was, sure, there's a person by the name of Rose, and he lives up the road a bit, but he doesn't have a phone. If you call back tomorrow at the same time, I'm sure he'll want to talk to you. Well, she did. She made a connection and got some help. Now, I wouldn't suggest this in the metropolitan areas of Ireland, but certainly it's amazing what can be accomplished with a little bit of help. Peter, you got a story on...
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Research like that in Ireland, and you're calling back. You said your family has called back before to get a hold of someone?
At the local pub, actually, where the phone is, and we call over there, and then they come up the road. They live about half mile, three-quarters of a mile away. And the people are very, very congenial and be glad to help make those connections for you.
Okay, yeah, so don't let little things like not having a phone or not being able to connect directly with somebody over the phone stop you. There's just always a way. And I might mention when it comes to the phone book, you can get the phone book for cities throughout America and the phone book for cities in Ireland at major libraries. You can go write down the phone numbers of people with your names throughout America and with your name throughout Ireland. You can write them. You can call them. Write down the names and addresses now. You may decide to use them later. And when you're in Ireland, write down every name and address that might come in helpful to you later on your search. Of course, when you're in Ireland, you're going to want to visit Dublin and Belfast. They're a must. They both have excellent records. Dublin has a larger selection, and it does include the counties of Northern Ireland as well. Belfast's collection is smaller. It is very well organized, however, and if you have roots in the counties of the north, you'll want to definitely go by there and research. They have a few things compiled in modern times that Dublin, of course, doesn't have, and there's also some specific records that you'll want to look at. Just in general, I'll tell you that the birth registers, the parish registers, which we'll talk about in session 6, usually begin around 1820 or 1830 in Ireland. So you might want to do some research there. They're also found in America. The parish registers at the LDS library has them on hand. You know, I've always found it very exciting when my search boiled down to a one-on-one contact in Ireland. And staying at a bed and breakfast is the best way to get down to this exciting step in research. If you decide to stay, write ahead to the proprietors of the B&B and let them know that you're serious and sincere in what you're doing. Ask them if they know anything about the name, if anyone of the name is still living now. Are the elders of the name still alive? Start stirring up a little excitement. By the time you arrive, the stage may have been set. You have been announced in advance, and you are no longer a total stranger. If you stay for more than a day or two, you may get some added help. They have to check you out first to make sure that you're a legitimate person. And a word about your attitude. It's very important. Remember that you are asking for a favor. Be patient. If you're in a rush or pushy, it's going to get you nowhere fast. Let them get to know you. Let them know that your research and your family history is an affair of the heart, as well as scholarly research. And even if the Irishman or Irishwoman doesn't quite understand all the American excitement over searching for their roots since that television program came out, he will understand if it's truly a matter of importance to you. With the possible help of your B&B proprietor, you may gain easier access to the family historian, the local historian, parish records, and local contacts. If you placed an ad in an Irish newspaper before arriving, they may help you in coordinating with your contact in Ireland before you arrive. And I've got to stress the fact that it's even more important in Ireland than in America. You must stick around and talk to these folks more than once. You sort of have to prove yourself. Allow enough time for a potential helper to go through his attic or files or talk to his aunts and uncles that are further out in the county. A smile and a cheerful attitude can go a long way in making some long-time friends. Keep their addresses and write them when necessary from America. Okay, now I'd like to review a few books. First of all, I'll ask Ed and Joe what the best books that they found have been for help. Just maybe give the title and a little comment afterwards. So we'll see what you found is real helpful before I go into a quick commentary of my own. Ed?
One book I started with by asking a librarian was entitled The Source, and it's produced in affiliation with the LDS Church. It gives a tremendous amount of information about the LDS records in Salt Lake City. And one of the first things that I found in The Source was a recommendation to look at census index of family name. I didn't know that there were census index. It saves an awful lot of time from having to go through a microfilm, an entire microfilm. Another book that's a journal that comes out 6 times a year, and it's called a Genealogical Helper. In it are many, many, many advertisements from people all over the country who have gone to the trouble of doing research on their own. Some have even printed books and pamphlets. And if somebody's already done a lot of work on a family, it can save you a lot of trouble. That's
Okay, thanks,
two important books.
Joe, how about you?
Well, one of the books that I discovered when I moved to Kansas City was a book called The Complete Book for Tracing Your Irish Ancestors. I found that to be very helpful, particularly since I was at that time getting ready to try and jump the water and start looking at Irish records, and I knew nothing about them. The book I'm currently working from that I'm very excited about is a book called Researching in Salt Lake City, and the woman who wrote it has obviously done a great deal of work in Salt Lake City at the RLDS library, and she goes into such detail, even down to where to hang your sweater and what does a copy machine cost. I found it very useful, and I'm preparing to take a trip now based on her information. And I'm sure that I'll be much more effective when I get there, having read her information.
I've got to tell you, that was an unsolicited comment on the Complete Book for Tracing Your Irish Ancestors since I wrote it. Now, the truth of the matter is, when Joe and I first met, she didn't know who I was, and we had met at an Irish folk dancing class. And she happened to tell me that she had read the book just a day or two before at the library. So it is a true story. She had found it, and she did like it before we met. Now, as far as that book goes,
money, Michael.
Yes, I know. As far as the Complete Book for Tracing Your Irish Ancestors go, it was the first work I put out that was hardbound. Being hardbound helps in that it won't fall apart if you happen to carry it to Ireland. It also is the only how-to book that has not only a full set of county maps, 1 to a page, but also has a place name index. I believe it's some 7,000 names are indexed in the back, where you can look for either your family name on the map or the particular area in Ireland you're trying to nail down. I'd like to make a few comments on some other books that people have asked about. We get a lot of calls on our books, but there's a few recommendations I can give you. Now, if you're just starting out from very scratch, there's a little paperback by Edward McLysott, called The Surnames of Ireland, and he lists 4,000 or 5,000 names and gives a 1 or 2 line definition of where they might be found, a little family history, further references. It's not too expensive, and it's a nice little beginning book to take a look at where your family might have started in Ireland. The other work by McLysott, which is sort of the beginner's Bible as far as genealogy and coats of arms are concerned, is Irish Families by McLysott, and he has some beautiful full-color coat of arms. There's 200 or 300 arms in there, and it's just great. The Foundation has just published a book of arms, and I believe there's about 1,200 coats of arms in there. They are all black and white, however, and we did include a special section on coats of arms that come from unofficial sources that are nonetheless believed to be Irish by most people. When it comes to passenger lists, The Famine Immigrants, published by Genealogical Publishing Company, covers the years 1846 to 1851 for the Port of New York. It's very good. I think they're about $45 each. Go to the library, take a look for your surname. It's basically a library reference book. There's no need to purchase it unless you're doing quite a bit of varied research. We also have Irish Genealogy, a record finder. Once you get past the beginning stage and you're starting to attempt to locate specific records in Ireland, this is the best book I've seen, and it's probably the best one out in the last, maybe since the beginning of Irish genealogy. It's very specific. It's not necessarily for a beginner. If you're in America, you don't really want it. But when you get to Ireland and you know you're researching a county, you want to find some specific records or specific deeds or wills, excellent, excellent resource. It also is a paper cover, and it is inexpensive. Let me see, Peggy McGee has a book out on tracing Irish ancestors. It's very good. It's got some philosophy in there, which I find very helpful rather than just the names, facts, and numbers. And then probably the oldest one that I'm aware of is the Handbook on Irish Genealogy by Heraldic Artists. It gives you the names, the addresses, and the 1890 birth index in it as well. It does have a set of maps in the back, but there is no place name index. Any of these beginning books will get you on your way. That's what you're after. You need names, addresses. You need to know what repository these records can be found in. Okay, I think I'll stop with that. We've got some other books, but I'll include a brief review in our companion booklets. You can take a look at those if you like. Now I wonder if we could get a final comment from Peter Adams, who is intently studying an Irish book in the corner. Could you give us another story on directions in Ireland, finding your way in Ireland?
Well, talking about your B&Bs and how helpful the people are, they really are. I came late into the town in the north one day, and so I stayed in this B&B hotel type, and in the morning I was looking for some cousins, and so I asked the proprietor if he would be able to help me with directions, and he said, well, come on outside on the porch. And we stepped out, and he says, now look down that road there. So I'm following his finger and watching down the road, and he says, now, do you see that red roof? And I said, yes. He says, well, that's not it. So what they try to do, of course, is give a little landmark so that you know if you've gone there, basically you're in the wrong spot. But they're trying to position you, so you have to get used to how they tell you how to find things. Kind of fun.
Okay, thank you, Peter. We're ready to begin session 3 now. You might take a break. We'll be talking about how to find your coat of arms. Do you have a coat of arms hanging on your living room wall that really belongs to a family from another country? How do you know? I'd like to thank you for joining us for session 2. We'll be moving on to session 3. Thanks again. Well, we're back here in real time at the Irish Roots Cafe after listening to the best of Irish families on our podcast, number 2. That podcast was from 1984. I'd like to thank you for listening and remind you that you can contact me at mike@irishroots.com or on my webpage at www.irishroots.com. Thanks again for coming to the Irish Roots Cafe.